Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and I've finally done it. After months of questions, when is there going to be a skill rotation guide? Comments on YouTube, give me a skill rotation guide. Also roast my account. I finally took the time. I put together a list. Took a lot of inspiration visually from the stuff I've been doing recently, and the monstrosity that you're seeing over here that's taking up the entire screen, you wouldn't even know it's Marvel Future Fight unless you couldn't hear the background music, is the Marvel Future Fight skill rotation guide as of 4.9. Now, of course, you will see white spots immediately. I have not completed the list for all 187 characters because I want this list to be accurate, I want the list to be helpful, and I want to have personal experience with all of these skill rotations. So I can personally say all of the skill rotations that I've written I've done myself, whether I've played with them myself in Shadowland or Extreme Alliance Battle or World Boss Ultimate. It's happened, and it's happened recently because I pulled most of these from memory. A few of them I had to go and double check in the skill preview as far as like chaining different skills and canceling, and a couple of them I had to double check for buffs in the case of trying to cast a buff first rather than second, or second rather than first. But otherwise, this is all from my memory. Now, because it is my memory, it's also therefore my opinion. So I don't want anyone to take this as the law. You can definitely make up your own skill rotation. It's definitely encouraged for you to master the character yourself rather than just following whatever guide that I've set forward. But this is meant to be a rough estimate of what the character can most optimally do, which is, you know, you're trying to land all of their most damaging skills at the beginning for the damage proc, if that's what you're doing, and there's even a column there for the proc skill. And then you're also trying to rotate in important skills that have buffs, that have iframes, that have debuffs for the enemy, and things of that nature. But it's still impossible with just numbers and letters and colors on a page to illustrate and to express all of the nuance of a skill rotation. That's probably what makes Marvel Future Fight the most difficult game. The fact that there is a skill rotation, the fact that you're not just pressing one or two buttons, the fact that you're pressing multiple buttons and you can press them in different orders to get different outcomes, is really the ultimate test of skill. And being able to master skill rotations across multiple different characters, across multiple different types, is really what's going to set you apart from other players. So I encourage you to ignore what I'm saying in a sense and come up with your own rotations if they suit you better. If they don't, if you're struggling, absolutely take a look at this, absolutely try to get tips from this, and I'll do my best now to explain all of my thinking. But I don't want people to just say, oh, you know, Cynicalex's skill rotation is obviously better. Just go look at the guide. No, I can definitely be wrong. I definitely have been wrong in the past. There's video documentation evidence of me being wrong. I don't mind being wrong, but I just want people to get as much help as possible from these things, but I still want people to come to their own educated conclusions based on what they find and based on how they interpret things. And it's especially important for skill rotations because if you don't have max skill cooldown, if your device is lagging, if you've got lower or higher attack speed, there's so many different factors. How fast your fingers can press the buttons. There's so many things that influence whether you can do the skill rotation exactly as I've written it or not. You know, I do the vast majority of my gameplay on a computer with an emulator and a controller, so you may not be able to emulate exactly what I'm doing, so you need to take all that into consideration. Don't feel bad if you can't imitate these skill rotations perfectly. Even sometimes I can't. So I know it's a long PSA, guys, but I just wanted to get all that out there so people don't get too rowdy and don't get too upset about this. I mean, you shouldn't be upset, but anyways. Moving on to the actual skill rotation guide. I tried to break it down and I tried to put it, write it in a way that was familiar to you if you've seen skill rotations being written before, whether it's on a line chat, Twitter, Discord. Very, very often people will just write the numbers of the skill. So you'll press skill number 5. It's not the skill itself in terms of, you know, 4 being a skill. 4 is actually the passive, but the way that it's written for most skill rotations, the 4th skill. So just keep that in mind. The 4th skill is technically the skill right here. Okay, and there is no, this is actually the 4-star passive, so it would just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know it's not, it's kind of redundant because the 4 is here now, but people used to call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because this was here. So I just wanted to make that clear. It's a small little thing. In addition, there are a bunch of, well, there's 4 basically. There's 4 additional words or letters that will accompany the rotation. So they go as follows. C is indicated by the letter C, which means cancel by pressing the next skill. So if you don't know, you can cancel almost any skill, I think, or any skill in the game by just pressing another skill. Now, there are things that can happen that will cause you to not be able to cancel your skill. The most often, the enemy will either iframe, which means you don't have a target, or they will move away from you and they will be out of your range of target. Your character has an invisible range for each of their skills. Some of them are larger, some of them are smaller, and so if they run out of that range, even if they're not iframing and you try to cancel, your character might not be able to cancel, and they'll continue going through the motions of that skill. Actually, Dr. Doom's first skill is a skill that you actually can't cancel. It just came to mind. But most of the time, 90+% of the time, if your positioning is good and they're not iframing, you can cancel any skill by just pressing another skill. And that's what the C stands for. So for example, Apocalypse, you can see lots of C's. 4, cancel 2, cancel 3, 1, or sorry, cancel 3, cancel 1, 5. So that is how you would read his rotation. You're basically very quickly pressing 1 and then 2 and then 3, or sorry, 4 and then 2 and then 3 and then 1, and then when 1 is over, you press 5. If you don't see anything between the numbers, you should assume that you should run the rotation or run the skill animation from beginning to end. So in the case of America Chavez, it's 5, and then whatever the skill animation does, and then when it's over, 3, 4, and then 2. You don't want to leave too much of a gap between those skills because, of course, any gap that you leave is a chance for you to get hit, unless you have immunity or invincibility or something like that. So generally, you need to be familiar with the rotation, and you need to be familiar with the animation of every single skill to know when it ends or when it's about to end in order for you to press the next skill. The second one is a capital H, and the capital H stands for hold skill for the proc duration. Now, you can ignore the H if you don't have a damage proc, if you've got, like, let's say, an invincibility obelisk, but for characters that have channeling skills like Cyclops, Cable, Anti-Man, Blue Marvel, Nova, Human Torch, you do want to hold those channeling skills for your proc. And even if you don't have a proc, you probably still want to hold those channeling skills because you'll do more damage that way instead of just pressing it for 1 second and letting go and then just kind of going into the next skill, because it's a continuous beam attack. It racks up, infinite number of hits technically. Keep in mind, you can always cancel those continuous hit attacks by just moving your joystick, or if you're doing the one touch, by just tapping somewhere else on the screen. You don't actually have to cancel it with another skill. So in the case of Anti-Man, he's got a pretty complicated rotation, but it's 3, cancel 5, cancel 1, cancel 4, hold. And actually, I do need to make a change quickly to 5. It's actually a delayed cancel on 5. And this is the third one that I wanted to discuss, DC. So I know that there's C already, Ishidishi. There's already a C for cancel by pressing next skill, but for some characters, the skill cancel doesn't happen or shouldn't happen right away. And this is something that I want to use to illustrate a bit of the more nuance of a skill rotation. So a perfect example would be Anti-Man, but more familiar to you guys is probably Cable. Cable's skill rotation is very easily expressed as 4, cancel 2, cancel 3, cancel 5. But that rotation is actually less accurate than mine, which is 4, delayed cancel, 2, cancel 3, cancel 5. Because technically you do hold the 4th skill slightly longer because of the animation, and because if you cancel it too quickly, you won't get any of the effects. And I'll show you what I mean by taking them into the skill preview, because I don't actually have any other gameplay to actually show you in different game modes. So in the sense of his 2 and 3, they happen right away. The 3 summons those knives, the 2 summons those lasers from the sky. You can cancel 2 into 3 into 1, and you'll get all of those effects happening. The lasers, you get the knives, you get the first skill, fire burn, etc. However, the 4th skill is different. If you do the 4 and you immediately cancel into 2, you can see the 2's going on, but nothing happened with the 4. So if you do that, if you do 4, cancel 2, cancel 3, cancel 5, you're actually only getting a fraction of the number of hits you should be getting. So that's why you need the DC for the delayed cancel. And what that looks like with Cable is you use the 4th skill and he summons a bunch of portals. And when the portals are done, then you cancel 2, cancel 3, cancel 5. You can do 2, 3, 2, 3, 5 very quickly, but you have to delay after 4. If you interrupt 4 too early, you're gonna only get, see, I only got 2 of those portals, so I only get 2 of the missiles. But if I cancel a little bit earlier, I get a few more of the missiles. There I got 4, and if I wait all the way, I get like 6 or 7 portals with missiles. So that is the simplest and the most the easiest to understand reasoning for wanting to use the DC, the delayed skill cancel, in addition to the regular cancel, the regular C. So characters like Cable have that, characters like Anti-Man have that, characters like Dr. Doom with his 4th skill, because he shoots the gun and then he snaps his fingers. You have to wait for the snap in order for those kind of meteors to come raining down, otherwise you won't get them, and then it'll mess up the timing of your rotation if you're trying to hit a damage proc. This is also, of course, quite useful for Extreme Alliance Battle, because I tried to make these rotations as detailed as possible for Extreme Alliance Battle. In the case of some characters where they have one skill that takes a lot longer to come off of cooldown than another skill, I've also included multiple rotations. So for example, Odin, his 3rd skill has a very long cooldown. I think it's like 25 seconds or 30 seconds. So his rotation can be expressed as 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is super easy. But then the next rotation, you won't be able to do 3 again. You'll only be able to do 5, 4, 2, and 1. And so that is the way of expressing that with the little slash in between. Medusa, same thing. Her 3rd skill with the immunity and the crit rate buff has a long cooldown. So you'll do 3, 4 proc, 1, 2, 5. But then the next rotation, you can't use 3. So you have to just substitute in 4, 1, 2, 5. Or some variation of that. I've also tried my earnest to include the proc skill. For most characters, it's just one particular skill. For some, I've included the cancellations because it's important that you try to land the proc on both. And so if you're landing the proc too early or too late, that will be not only why you're getting less damage through to the enemy or you're getting fewer points in ABX, but it'll also be a way for you to tell if you're doing it right. So if the proc lands on the 4th skill when the meteors are coming down before Dr. Doom has done the kind of and then the beginning of the missile attack, then you're too early. On the other hand, if the meteors are already gone and he's halfway through the missile and then the proc happens, you're way too late. So it's got to be in the middle of 4 cancel 5. Same thing with his other rotation, 2 cancel 3. So you have to pay attention here. For Dr. Doom, he can't actually do 4 cancel 5 every single time because the cooldown is just way too long for him, because the 5th skill has a cooldown of like, I don't know, 25 seconds. Yeah, it's insane. So in that case, your rotation is going to be 4 cancel, delayed cancel 5, and then you'll proc, and then towards the end, you'll do 2 cancel 3 for the next proc. So that's why he has an and symbol there. You're actually procking on this one for the first rotation, and then you're procking on 2 cancel 3 for the second rotation. Another thing I want to point out is characters, very few, but some of them have the word kite in brackets. If you don't know, this is an RPG word. It means run away, or basically just run in a pattern that the enemy will have to chase you in so that you don't get hit. And generally in RPGs, you'll especially at low levels, you'll hit an enemy once and then you'll run away. You'll kind of back up, and instead of them hitting you, they'll have to chase you. And then when they stop chasing you, you can hit them once and then you can run away. Or if you have a ranged character, you can just shoot them with an arrow. As they approach you, you back up, shoot them with an arrow, back up, shoot them with an arrow. That's what kiting is. And so for someone like Gambit, you're just going to do 5 and 3 and basically just kite like a bitch until you kill them. And same thing with Cyclops. He doesn't really have a lot of value on 3 and 4, especially if you can't stun lock them. So it's best to just do 5 for the proc because it's immunity skill, and then 1 and 2, and then to kite because 1 and 2 give you those juicy iframes. Additionally, there are characters where you have an or next to different rotations. So for someone like Dr. Doom, because of the skill cooldown oddity, you have to use 2 different rotations. You have to proc on 2 different skills. That's why there's an and there. But for someone like Scarlet Witch, I've included the or. The or means you can choose, and this is a bit more nuanced, but Scarlet Witch is one of the few characters that has 3 very strong skills in 4, 5, and 3. But also because of the all defense down from 4, you want to use 4 somewhere in the proc. So you could either proc on 4 cancel 5, which is quite popular, but 4 cancel 3 is really effective too. but some people just like to proc on 4. But all 3 of these are tried and true methods. Keep in mind, very few characters have this much versatility and this much power in their rotation, so this is not something you're going to see very often. Finally, I do want to just talk briefly about Songbird because she's a unique character as well. It says must AA, and so if you read her rotation and you're familiar with Songbird, you'll think that her rotation is wrong, because I say 3, cancel 1, 3 is for the shield, the guard hit, and 1 is for the stun or the bind, and then 4, cancel 2, 4 is the bubble, the kind of spiky bubbles, and 2 is another bind, and then 5, which is the charge up and release skill. There's no auto attack. That's what AA stands for. It's not Alcoholics Anonymous, it's not Alex, Al, or some shit like that. It stands for auto attack, because for Songbird, unlike any other character, you actually have to auto attack in between her skills, especially after the skills that have crowd control, like 1 and 2. So you definitely want to do 3 cancel 1 auto attack for a couple of seconds, and then 4 cancel 2 auto attack for a couple of seconds, and then 5 auto attack for a couple of seconds, and then start it all over again. If you've never played a Songbird, you should absolutely bring her into a low-level Shadowland stage and play as her. She's super fun to use, and it's kind of hilarious how unique she is compared to pretty much every other character in the game. The only other thing that I want to mention is the word wait. Sometimes I put the word wait in there. Wait obviously just means wait. Just have the park the character there and wait. In the case of some characters, they have kind of continuous damage effects, like Ghost does with her 4th skill. So the wait there would be when you're proccing your 4th skill. You don't want to interrupt that by doing 1 or 3 or 2, because then it's going to interrupt your rotation. Of course, the lists are not complete. The lists are also missing some of the greater details for the tier 3 skills, because certain characters like Magneto have a specific rotation that you use for building up the tier 3 proc, and then they have another rotation that you use for the tier 3 skill itself. So you can see here Magneto's tier 3 proc is just missing from this rotation. I'm going to be adding the tier 3 rotation specifically somewhere else on this guide page, because it's just too much information to fit on this line, and I don't want to make the columns super huge to accommodate, 2 or 3 different rotations for the character just because they have their tier 3. So hopefully this skill rotation guide will be full one day soon, and we'll have 200 plus beautiful skill rotations, all kind of perfectly mapped out and perfected and tried and tested and true. Let me know what you guys think. More importantly, if you have a perfect skill rotation that you stand by, that you think is excellent, send it to me in the comments or on Twitter or on Discord, and I will personally test it out. If I like it enough, I will put it on this list, and I'll give you some credit on the side here for a few weeks. Or maybe I'll put it next to the person's name. I don't know. Anyways, that's an incentive for you guys. Thank you so much for your help. Hopefully this helps all of you guys. Hit me up, subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.